Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, boards, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. It's Thursday. Welcome to my behind-the-scenes DMLA live stream, Crafting the Golden Vault, which I build right and prepare for our next session of Keys from the Golden Vault. We were playing character Cherie, Elwin, Daisy, Tamino, or Vero. Go away, because this is not the right day for you, but the rest of you are welcome to join me for a spoiler-filled crafting session. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. You can also support the channel by shopping for all of your board games, CCGs, RPG supplies, and more. Our sponsor, Noble Knight Games, using my affiliate link. For our campaign, we use Roll20, and for streaming, I use OBS Studio. It's finally getting a little wintry here in North Texas. I have a blanket wrapped around my legs. We actually got down to like 30 degrees maybe overnight, which I know many of you are scoffing at. We've had a very, very mild winter. Like, we usually don't have very strong winters in general, but we've had a particularly mild winter this year. I don't know what that's going to mean for what our summer is going to be like, but usually right now we're in like our worst winter months, where we've got like some ice and freezing and hellacious things like that, and we've had none of that. Maybe I'm jinxing everything by talking about it, but as of right now, it's just a little bit chilly, but still copious amounts of sunshine. In the Underdark, there is less sunshine, though. Ooh, good transition. There's no light. It is Little Lockford. It is the level 5 heist for Keys from the Golden Vault, which I have been working on preparing, which, honestly, I've got pretty basic notes. It's a lot different than the previous two heist missions, where I had to have a lot of notes about all the different things the party could interact with. But this one is set up much more like a traditional dungeon crawl that just happens to be set in an abandoned town, basically. That's full of really just one type of villainous faction. There's really no other kind of... I guess there's a few Underdark monsters they could encounter in Cave Mouth, but for the most part, it's basically just the Clockwork soldiers. So I just figure out how many of these encounters I want to run and where would be good places to run them, and then note that like each of these districts has between 1 and maybe 3 locations that are actually notable and worth visiting, and the players already basically know which ones are worth visiting via the map they received, which is what makes this one kind of more heist-like. So it's easy for me to kind of tell where they're going to go for the most part. The map also explains how the bridge system works, which, again, I don't know why they have raised drawbridges in a lava lake where there's no boats or anything, but whatever, we'll go with it. Right now, it funnels them towards the east. We're going to find out, unfortunately, not until tomorrow's session, where the party is exactly going to explore. We know that they eventually have to get to the lower right corner. And then we also know that they have to find Tockworth and get the key from her. And she is most likely at the security center, which is at the center island, which is pretty much just the security center. Currently, the only means of getting there, non-magically, would be to get to the power station in the upper right corner and then activate the bridge controls, which you can then just easily make it towards the Overlook and then down to Termite Heights. Basically, once you get to the power station, then it becomes easier to get. Because I think the party might have some form of magical means of traversing the bridge, but I don't think they have like a party-wide version of doing that. So at the very... like, it may be an option for them to have 1 or maybe even 2 people cross a bridge and then scout. But I think to get the whole party across, I think they're going to have to get to the power station. So that kind of helps us plan things out a little bit. So presumably, again, unless they want to scout ahead with something like, I think we said that Tavine's monk, or no, not his monk, his Aasimar heritage lets him adopt a flight mode if he wanted to do that for the one long rest of using it. He could technically scout ahead to the security center or to the cave mouth. But then I think it only lasts for like a minute, and he'd be stuck over there unless he wanted to fly back, so that would be tricky. So presumably, I think the party will explore Old Lockford, check out the town hall. They will go east to this halfway isle abbey where even the note says that there may still be some monks barricaded inside, maybe alive. And then east again to Turbine Heights, where you can check out the jail and infirmary, and also the power station, which is where the bridge controls are located. So that's, I think, going to be their general path. They could take the slag line if they wanted to. It's a much more dangerous path, and it only goes counterclockwise, and it never actually goes to the Overlook. They could use that to get to the power station or to the Smoldertown workshop. Eventually, they would have to go through the cave mouth, but I do have an encounter at least set up, which we can talk about. I need to actually read more about cave mouth just in case they do make it down there, because otherwise I think you can actually completely skip the lower left corner. And in fact, the notes even says avoid it. It's just warehouses, and it's like monsters will be lurking around the district. So even the mayor's like, don't fucking go there. So starting with Old Lockford, I think we're gonna go with a single observer patrolling around initially between. Basically, they're walking into the town and in the town hall here, which I did, I believe, make this map now to scale. So each square is 25 feet. So each district is about 150 feet across, I believe. They're all about the same size, except for the Overlook and the Halfway Isle are both a lot smaller. They're more like 50 or 75 feet across, so they're tinier. And the Overlook is higher than the others also, which is interesting. These are all 150 feet up, and then the Overlook is 170 feet up. If anybody falls in the lava, it's obviously bad news. I don't actually think they take falling damage, weirdly. It doesn't say they do because you fall into lava, but then you take the lava damage. So I don't know. I never saw anything that says you fall and take the falling damage, or how that. I mean, technically, I guess you could use that the rule about falling into liquid, right? And you could use your reaction to like have the falling damage, and then also, but basically, if you fall off, you're pretty fucked. So with the observer patrolling around, I kind of have notes about how the observers work. This is one of the main like I mean, basically the whole complication of this place is just avoiding these patrols. Like, there's not a whole lot of new dynamic stuff I have appearing, but I'm going to kind of try to play with that as we go through and see how the players work their way through, how stealthy they are or whatever, or not. And then that'll kind of determine maybe how the overall complications work, I guess. So an initial observer will be flying around, and I have notes that say it could be that the party sees the observer first, or that the observer sees the party first. Kind of a DM prerogative, because the observers aren't necessarily stealthing. But it could be possible you're just walking along a street, and this thing also doesn't make a lot of noise. It's just flying, hovering around, and maybe it just turns a corner and sees them. Now, because it's DM prerogative, I'm going to be very careful about using the method of the observer just seeing them immediately. So I thought maybe if that happens, we roll initiative, and if the party can destroy it before its turn, then they can effectively silence it. And then the other way is if they see the observer first, then they are all given a chance to do something, whether they can make a stealth check or they can try to attack it or whatever. And if they fail, basically everybody gets a chance to do something. And if they fail at stopping it, then it will notice them. And then its action is to essentially sound an alarm that draws other creatures. And I believe the way the complication is written, let's see, I think it's all under overview. Security forces, observers, loud enough to summon 1d4 clockwork defenders. So I'm probably going to add more to that, because I think this whole campaign has been pretty undertuned so far. Mainly because it's just very low combat, and it's kind of hard to balance D&D without combat, I think. I've added that whole Clockwork Enforcer stat block, which is kind of a modified animated armor with some additional spell-like abilities. So I would probably do 1d4 Clockwork Defenders and 1d4 Clockwork Enforcers that get summoned. It says 2 rounds later. That just seems really boring. So I'm probably going to do 1 round later. But that still would give the party presumably some time to prepare, depending on where they fell in initial initiative order. So that's kind of my plan for... And each district should have at least one of those observer encounters. So to me, that's kind of a almost like a trap hazard, right? It's not necessarily combat, although you can use an attack to try to get out of it, maybe. But it is something you have to deal with. And the failure state is instead of taking damage, you spawn a combat encounter, which is not something I do very often because combat takes a lot of time and it can be kind of a drag to do it too much. But I really think that's kind of the whole challenge here, is getting around without getting into too many of these combat encounters. And it's really not a location where the players, I think, are going to be able to long rest at all. And I think that's going to be the main way that we balance this place out. Definitely get plenty of short rests in here, but long resting, we'll kind of play it by ear and see how the players are doing resource-wise and which allies and friends they've made. But I think it would be very, very difficult for them to long rest once they're in here. I would like to say that, but we'll see how they do. Once they make it into the... So, in other words, it's an optional combat encounter if they fail the observer encounter, I guess, getting to the town hall. And I'm not going to put them on a battle map for doing that either. We're going to try to treat it really as like a kind of a skill challenge type thing, although it's not really a skill challenge. You know what I mean? But so this is, and the map I have actually does showcase, which again, this is the map from the drive-through, or sorry, from DM's Guild. I'm probably not going to use this map until they're actually at the town hall. Maybe like here-ish. And then they can go inside the town hall. They can explore the desk and everything to get some loot. And then I think I'm going to try to time it where, like, when they're leaving the town hall, or if they have somebody keeping watch or something, that's when they will just run into a straight-up patrol that also includes an observer. And that will be an interesting, like, roll for initiative thing. So that'll be a forced fight here. And if they don't take out the observer before it does its thing, then it will spawn additional units. So that becomes like you have to kill this thing before it spawns more bad guys and takes up a little bit of their action economy. The bad thing is the observers as written, I feel like they're a little too easy to take out with a single hit. So it almost becomes trivial if the party, especially like I'm picturing if you roll initiative, then that means the party has 5 chances, assuming we have all 5 players, for somebody to be able to hit this thing. And a lot of people have multi-attack. It only has an AC of 14 and an average hit points of 7, which means basically as long as anybody can hit it, which they probably will, then it's destroyed. So it feels a little on the easy side to try and take this thing out before it does its shriek, as long as you see it first. So I could combat that by saying, like, there may be times where I can just say, oh, this thing came around the corner, it instantly sees you and it starts shrieking. That kind of feels shitty though, because the party doesn't really have any options to do it with. The other thing I have to do is just to bolster its stats a little bit. I don't want to make it stick around for too long, but I do feel like at least surviving a single hit would kind of be a nice change. And it's surprising because this one is built for level 5, but the observer is just so weak. You could maybe use 2 observers, although I think the ones that they encounter outside of combat should only have 1, but maybe when they're fighting a patrol, if you had 2 of them, then somebody would have to fight. Somebody would have to destroy both of them, I guess, to stop the alarm from going off. It just says that they're tasked with monitoring the streets to ensure nothing has penetrated the city's defenses. If an observer detects intruders, it contacts Tockworth telepathically, letting her know where the intruders are. Tockworth then orders the observer to use its next action, so it actually even takes 2 actions, to emit a piercing shriek, which is loud enough to summon the defenders, which arrive 2 rounds later, and adjust the number of reinforcements if they've gone, which it even says they've only got 20 defenders total, which I don't actually care about the number. I'm going to use however many I want. So that's my concerns about the observer. Of course, I do have the concern that, like, well, I also got to be careful about it successfully getting its shriek off and really adding to combat and kind of bogging things down a little bit versus the few forced encounters I have. So maybe I'm worrying over nothing. Because this one, I think, will be a forced encounter here outside of the town hall. But I'm also only going to use, what is this? A single enforcer and 2 defenders. So a pretty light combat encounter with the Observer, though, which I still need to find a freaking token art for a little droney guy. I'm hoping maybe that Forge the Artificer has something. Maybe it's just artwork that was seen somewhere. So that'll be when they're exiting the town hall. We'll have a forced kind of mini encounter here. But if they don't take out the Observer, that will summon more guys. So from there, again, we're gonna presume they go across the halfway aisle to the east. If they go down to Cave Mouth, I do have one map set up, which I had to really jerry-rig this thing together because the Cave Mouth map only includes 1 or 2 of the buckets. So I kind of had to do a really shitty like copy-paste job and create more lines of those buckets in a bit of a line. Because I think it'd be really interesting to have a common encounter while the players are stuck inside these tiny-ass buckets with like no maneuverability whatsoever. And then the location of Cave Mouth suggests some monster fights, I believe. Or is it under... Actually, it might be under Little Lockford Overview. Wandering Monsters. There it is. In the Cave Mouth districts, the monsters encountered have all crawled from the mines. They can encounter dark mantles, gricks, or a shambling mound made of fungi. I figure, okay, well, I need a flying creature to be able to attack them while they're in the buckets on the rope, so Dark Mantle is perfect for that. This one just suggests using 2 of them. I don't know what the right number should be. They're kind of weak individually. Their whole thing is they suffocate you, I believe. Or is that the Cloaker I'm thinking of? +5 to hit, 26 plus 3 bludgeoning damage. The Dark Mantle attaches to the target, which these things do have a +3 to stealth, so you could try to ambush the party. If the target is a medium or smaller creature and the Dark Mantle had advantage on the attack roll, so if they were ambushing, it covers the target, which has the blinded... Interesting, so it only covers them if they actually had advantage, which has the blinded condition and is suffocating. That one does suffocate, okay. While attached to a target, the Dark Mantle can attack only the target, but has advantage on its attacks rolls. Speed becomes 0, and it can't benefit from any bonus to speed, and it moves with the target. And it takes an action to detach the Dark Mantle from itself, or I guess you can just attack it. This one doesn't have the thing about transferring the damage, though. I thought that other creatures had, where it's like if they attack it, they also have to do half the damage to the party member or something. Also, it can just emanate darkness once per day, and it lasts up to 10 minutes. Feels interesting, but not a great use of its action during combat. Feels like 15-foot emanation originating from the Dark Mantle. The effect lasts while the Dark Mantle maintain and it has to maintain concentration, which that's gonna be really hard for enemies. So kind of interesting. If it's magical darkness, I believe that does turn off player dark vision, which is nice. But if you're being attacked and you're in a bucket, like I just don't know if you're gonna get that creepy factor off. So I don't know if I'm actually gonna even mess with the darkness too much, especially if I only have like literally 2 I'm gonna attack with them. I don't know, tough call there. But obviously they're not that. These are not going to be designed to last very long. They have AC 11 and 22 freaking hit points. I could probably double the amount of Dark Mantles without much effort because they are so freaking weak and will barely get off any attacks. I could also use really any Underdark creature. Maybe Cloaker would be more interesting, but I need something that would not normally be here. I can't just have like piercers dropping from the ceiling or something because they wouldn't have that here in this town, even if the monsters did creep up a little bit from the cave mouth. But the idea being they have these mines that are kept in check by the soldiers and stuff. But because the gnomes are all gone, then maybe a few monsters have been able to escape this area. Otherwise, I kind of forget what's going on in cave mouth. I think there's another actual guy they can rescue here. It does say if the characters insist on exploring the mines, they attract the attention of a wandering cloaker that tries to frighten them away with haunting moans. So there is precedence for using a cloaker, which is a much more fun, stronger boss-type monster I could use. Which being frightened would be a pain in the ass for them. The Miners Guild Hall has a ghost. In L10, there's a corpse of a robed deep gnome. Master of the town's Miners Guild refused to leave and died, fending off Tockworth's clockwork defenders. Her restless soul lurks in the building, manifesting as a troublesome specter known as a poltergeist. It's literally just a pain in the ass combat fight. You just get attacked by a ghost with like no... And the party, but there's no notes about how the party would like learn any of that. There's one warehouse that is... full of 2 mimics and a psychic gray ooze. Jesus. The dead gnomes are mimics? That's crazy. I've never seen that. Like the corpses are mimics? That's some fucking like The Thing shit. Wow. Anyone who touches or otherwise disturbs them, the mimics are working with a psychic gray ooze, which is the puddle of oil. Wow. The gray ooze, the mimics recently crept into the warehouse and waiting for food to come to them. The vehicle in the warehouse is a large magical drilling machine used by the miners of the Lockford to burrow new tunnels. Vehicle has the properties of an apparatus of Qualish. That's pretty awesome. That's what this thing is here on the map. Instead of a swimming speed, it has a burrowing speed of 10 feet. Using its drill, it can burrow through solid rock. I don't know how much that would actually help you in this particular heist mission, though, since it's bridges spanning like these giant plateaus. I don't think burrowing, unless the thing is immune to lava, like the fucking thing from that one movie, The Core. Is that what I'm thinking of? Where they have this like weird drill machine that they have to go down. An inventor named Ignis Flint built the contraption and recently locked himself inside it with enough food and water to keep himself alive for a week. The metal hatch at the back of the vehicle is the only entrance. Ignis uses a spell scroll of arcane lock to seal it. Character, you can use an action to try to pull open the magic. Oh, so he's in there. The character is knocking the contraption. They hear Ignis' muffled voice shout, "Go away," and gnomish. Ignis attacks anyone who breaks into his contraption, but surrenders if reduced to 10 hit points or fewer. Which, it says he has the mage stat block. That's pretty crazy. Ignis and Tockworth are rivals. Ooh, Ignis long suspected Tockworth's experiments would prove troublesome for the Lockford. It's a shame this is all optional shit. His public warnings about Tockworth went ignored. A character uses action to try to convince Ignis to help them, first by impressing on him the importance of freeing the Lockford, then by succeeding on DC 14 persuasion check. Ignis pilots his contraption anywhere they need him to go. The vehicle has enough space inside for Ignis plus one other passenger. Okay, but I'd have to look up the apparatus of quality. Can it cross lava? Otherwise, like, how are you getting around? Because there's still, like, a lava lake. Large object, the following statistics. It's only immune to poison and psychic damage, not fire damage. To be used as a vehicle, the apparatus requires a pilot. It's airtight and watertight. The apartment holds enough air for 10 hours of breathing. The apparatus floats on water. It can also go underwater to the 900 feet. Okay, great, but it still doesn't sound like it's immune to fucking melting. Or did I miss that in the description here? I mean, that would be pretty cool to get get a fucking mage ally who has a digging submarine thing. The dark mantles, like a half a dozen or more, would drain some resources for sure, especially if you had half dozen or more. If you had something that pulls them out of the buckets. I know, something like a roper would be amazing, but I just don't see a roper being able to make it out of the caves in such short time to start harassing things. Yeah, I realize the dark mantles would be immune to their own effect with blindside for sure. And it would fuck up all the other player characters because I don't think any of them have blindside. I think they just have dark vision. The way you use them is a dark mantle drops on a character, then uses darkness on round 1. So does that mean it uses its initial attack? Like it surprise, I know we don't have surprise rounds, but like it surprises the party, assuming it can get that off with its crushing attack, and then instead of doing its auto damage the next turn, it does its darkness emanation. You'd only need one of them to do it, I guess, is the positive side. If you use a bunch of them, you'd only need one of them to do the darkness emanation, and that would create a 15-foot magical darkness zone, which in theory makes, or no, not in theory, it says, I think it blinds. Although it also blinds if they get their attack off too, doesn't it? Then the actual, I guess just that target is blinded. So yeah, maybe we'll attack them with a bunch of dark mantles. That could be an interesting encounter. I just like it. I just like having an encounter while they're riding buckets suspended 150 feet above lava. That seems pretty interesting also. Okay, so there is actually some interesting stuff going on in Cave Mouth. I don't know if we'll ever actually see it, but they have this warehouse with some monsters that you'd have to fight, and then a magical drill thing with a dude inside who is a rival of Tockworth and can help the party. But I just don't see how Instead of legs and a tail, it has treads. Give me a walking speed of 30 feet. I don't see how this drilling machine actually helps the party much as this cool new device because of the way this whole town is set up, where they're all these giant plateau stalagmites in the middle of this lava lake, and the drilling machine presumably can't go in the lava still unless I'm modifying it. So it can dig under, but that's not going to get it through the... It basically can't leave cave mouth. As far, and from what I understand, it's only designed to go into the mines and then dig up stuff. So that part's a little disappointing if the party is like, oh, cool, we got this. And he's like, yeah, I can't really go anywhere else other than this one district, though. But meeting Ignis and fighting the fucking mimic gnomes literally sound like something out of The Thing. That's insane. And then a psychic gray ooze. That's really creepy. In fact, you could even have like some destroyed Clockwork soldiers outside to really drive home. Also, the cave mouth district is all the lights are off, so it's even creepier. I do have some dynamic lighting, I believe, set up. Yeah, so the lava itself should give off some light. Although not really. That's actually an interesting point. The lava, it does give off light, but it's also 150 feet down. So I guess the way to do that would actually be to draw dynamic lighting around each of these as if it were a cliff, but then turn on one-way lighting. And I think that would properly block the light from actually coming up, because then I don't think any light from the lava would actually be coming up here. Is that correct? I'm probably overthinking this, but I figured I would give them that light with the lava, but now I'm realizing that the light, because these are 150 feet above the lava, it's not like right there next to the lava. So if we were to go one way, and then maybe do this. It's not an easy way to do it, but we're doing it. Kind of draw it around the cliff's edge here. All right, I did say one way. There we go. So now do it like that. Okay, so now if we were to take... where's my party? Take somebody with dark vision. Actually, somebody maybe with not dark vision. Okay. Although from the buckets you would be able to see it because they're 150 feet up. That's tricky. Yeah, because I'm realizing the buckets are actually the same. So here, dynamic lighting helps you from the lava, but then as soon as you enter into here... No, that looks dumb. So, yeah, that looks weird. You still can see out, and you can see all the lava out there, but then it's like pure darkness in here. I don't know if I like that. But it should still be dark. All right. Will it be dark if I just ignore that? I think it will be, because the light only goes... Yeah, that looks better. The light only goes like 30 feet or so from there. So I think as you get deeper into the district, it's still dark. So I think that looks pretty good. All right, we'll keep that. But yeah, interesting about the dark mantles, or maybe use a single cloaker. Might be more interesting and scary actually. Versus, I guess that's the idea. You want to use multiple dark mantles or a single cloaker to ambush the party. If they decide, and that's only if they decide to use the slag line to go south, because it's counterclockwise. They can only go the one direction. Cloaker's got its attach attack and 2 tail attacks, and it can bonus action cast a mirror image or moan. So they really fix the action economy pretty well with this creature. Has a stealth of +5. Well, in bright light, the cloaker's disadvantage on attack rolls. So actually, it doesn't really make sense to attack them while they're over lava. It'd actually wait and attack them while they're in the darkness. So maybe it's better to actually use a dark mantle. Because I don't think the dark mantle has light sensitivity. They do not. Okay, so I think I'm settled on that one. Even though Cloaker is more fun. But maybe we'll at least double the amount of dark mantles. Everybody gets a dark mantle. Actually, if you attack them with 6, then every one of them can do the attach, and one of them can do the darkness emanation. Just for funsies. So that's my idea there. And we'll think about if I want to do Cave Mouth if they decide to go south. I think as far as they'll get is maybe triggering the Dark Mantle encounter there. If they do decide to just ride it all the way to the lower right corner, I thought I'd also have an interesting trap set up at the Smolder Town entrance, because I believe it mentions that this is where the ore is refined. So all the rest of these, if you look at this map, look like kind of just like they just keep going, basically. They might have some kind of minor station for loading. But then the one in Smolder Town is like a huge-ass factory building. And I thought, okay, what if these things enter the factory building and like there's this whole automated like system where they have to avoid at least one like crushing trap or something where the ores are like, you know, pounded and other rocks are broken off. So they have to make an athletics or acrobatics check to actually just survive going through this area or to exit into Smolder Town. So I thought that would make things pretty interesting there. Otherwise, at the Halfway Isle location, which is here, this is going to be another forced fight as they enter into here. This is a church of the Deep Brother, Calarduran something, the Deep Gnome God, I guess. Abbot Kavoda has unfortunately not been able to escape, so he has remained behind, but he is hidden. He keeps hiding using Meld into Stone. And I suspect that Tockworth kind of knows he's here and keeps trying to find him, and that's why she's got this big old patrol. Or maybe he keeps trying to escape and keeps on having to flee back. And at this point, he's triggered like basically multiple patrols that are currently searching the Abbey for him. So this will be a forced fight because as soon as the party opens the door, these things will aggro. I've got 2 of the enforcers and 4 of the defenders in here, although thanks to dynamic lighting, the party will not fully know how many bad guys are actually here. Once they destroy all the... And no observer here, so no chance for reinforcements or anything, actually. And then once the party destroys these creatures, then Kavoda will come out, and I believe that's actually mentioned in the notes. I'm gonna make him kind of a pain in the ass, honestly. Let's see, where are you, Kavoda? Interior. I'm gonna skip the whole part about the prisoners being here. They're gonna be in Turbine Heights because I'd rather split my rescued NPCs up. What does it mention? The Abbot tried to free Little Lockford, but didn't get far before he was chased back up the Abbey. Kavoda avoided them by casting Meld and Stone. Right, so he's actually avoiding the Bugbear and the Goblin Boss, but in my game, he's going to be avoiding a Clockwork Patrol. As the characters explore the Abbey, Kavoda hears one of them and emerges from a nearby wall when he thinks it's safe to do so. So most likely, he will, after they defeat the Clockworks, he'll pop out. And his attitude is like, oh, I knew Calarduran would send someone to save me. I expected them to be gnomes, of course, or Underdark residents, but the Calarduran works in mysterious ways. Like, he'll be just full-on true believer, which he's the Abbot, so he fucking should be. But also kind of cowardly and fearful about the Clockworks and just wants to escape. So the party will be in a bit of a dilemma here because they can either follow his wishes and actually go back the way they came, possibly triggering more encounters. But if they do save him, he can have a reward ready for him, which I was reading in the little DM's guide that came with the maps that I'm using, that he could wear a ring that functions as a Stone of Good Luck, which this has been a generally low magic campaign. For me, I think it's been a low magic campaign, so anytime the party can get a magic item out of it, they're in pretty good shape. Which that's a pretty minor one as far as things go, but he can give them that, and also he's got several spell scrolls. In the game, in the campaign, he's got a scroll of magic weapon and a potion of hill giant strength. The party's already got a shit ton of potions, so I'm actually just replacing. I'm going to keep the magic weapon, but I'm going to add hold person and enhance ability. figure both of those are very useful scrolls to have that also appear on at least one of the players' lists, because we have a druid and a wizard, so that actually covers almost all the spells, I think. Which he will give. He may be convinced to give some of them just for maybe rescuing him, and if the party, explains why they're here and everything. But then he will demand to be escorted to freedom, and the party can ignore that and basically just tell him, well, or maybe they'll just tell him, hey, just stay here, which he will not be pleased about that at all. He will be whiny and want to stay with the party. So he's going to be, hopefully it'll be entertaining, but I am going to make him like purposely kind of a pain in the ass, basically, because he does not want to be left alone. He does not want to hide here anymore. This is like, he's going to treat them as like his saviors, essentially, but he's not going to be like the worshipful NPC. He's going to be a little, like, what are you doing? We need to get out of here, and we need to escape. And the person's gonna be like, no, we need to take this Tockworth person out. He does technically know about the town, but I made him so he's not necessarily familiar with Tockworth personally or anything. He doesn't know anything about how like the soldiers operate. Is not his wheelhouse at all. But if the party has any specific questions about the town and various buildings and things, then he can answer those questions. And then, of course, we did spend our last crafting session very painfully trying to build this custom priest NPC, which I struggled with terribly. Basically gave him, in case they do manage to convince him to not only stay with them, but to aid them as a combatant, he is the priest stat block. He comes with a Toll the Dead as a main cantrip. I'm not going to have him have any other weapons. And then he can cast Bless, Dispel Magic, Healing Word, or Lesser Restoration 3 times per day. So those are all pretty useful abilities to have from an NPC. But again, that will take at least some kind of skill check to convince him to not only not be a pain in the ass to stay with, to like not demand that they immediately leave, but also to come join them as a helpful ally. So we'll see how they want to handle that. That's the only thing available in Halfway Isle. There's literally no other real buildings or anything. It's pretty much just all that. I was thinking about making the Abbey a little more interactive, because right now it's literally, this is just a battle map with creatures. And there's nothing, the only thing I can do is roll a religion check to recognize the symbols outside the door or the statue inside as belonging to Calar Durin Smooth Hands. There it is. God worshipped by these I fucking hate that word, Neblins, deep gnomes. So something I thought of is like, well, there's a statue in here, and we know we love using statues as traps and things. Maybe there's some kind of magical thing where every time somebody steps through the Abbey, the statue casts like a halfway version of Flesh to Stone, and the whole thing is like, hey, be one with the earth or something, and you kind of feel that for a second. I guess you would have to allow a a con save to do that. And obviously I know Flesh to Stone is a very high level spell, but it would not petrify people. It would just solely do the first half of it. So if you recall, all of these abilities that can fully petrify somebody, or even something like Sleep, which knocks them incapacitated, is actually 2 saves. And the first save usually puts you in a debuff state, and then the second save is what knocks you out, basically. So for Flesh to Stone, which is a con save, the first save, you just have the... if you fail the first save, you have the restrained condition, which is what I think I would go with, and just have you immediately... have it just last like a single round, basically. Smurf Neblin. Ah, that's helpful. Thank you. It's also funny. Smurf Neblin. Like, but a V instead of an M. Okay. Sverf Neblin. My mouth still does not like that. Sverf Neblin. But we'll call them deep gnomes. But yeah, so what do we think about this? Is it too fiddly, or is it too weird to have? I know it would add to the challenge of the fight and basically make it so it's really only going to surprise the first person who steps through this door, which I would have a funny thing about the statue, like a plaque by the statue says, I don't know, something, feel the stone within you, or some kind of cool thing. And then the player has to make a Constitution saving throw And if they fail, they have the restrained condition for basically 1 round. And then I think it would cure that. So the idea is it just kind of, flickers through your body and kind of stones you for basically a second. And the idea also would be that the Clockwork are immune to that, even though I don't think Flesh to Stone technically says it doesn't work on Clockwork creatures, but it does say Flesh to Stone, and they are not made of flesh. I wonder if they're probably not immune to restrained. I would have it be where they're not affected by it, but yeah, they're technically not immune to restrained. But maybe the plaque says something like your flesh to stone. I don't know, but the idea being that the Clockworks would not be affected, but the players would. So their best course of action obviously would be to not enter the Abbey and just draw the creatures out, but they wouldn't know that until they start entering the Abbey itself. And unfortunately for me, the DM, the Clockworks don't have a lot of ranged options. The defenders have 0. They just have to run and clamp down, which they do grapple as they do that. And then the enforcers, which I did add ranged moves, but none of them actually do damage. They have a net that they can shoot that restrains, and then they have the sleeping gas that they can activate, which is on a recharge. So it's a lot of interesting knockout moves, but I didn't actually give them any ranged attacks. I'm wondering if that's actually a terrible weakness I've employed upon my Clockworks. Maybe they need some kind of just gun. Suddenly the Clockwork pulls out a fucking shotgun and blows you away. That might be an issue I'm realizing I'm running into here with no damaging range attacks. I don't know. Defenders are fast, and they've got a good attack. Actually, they're not fast. Sorry, they only have a 30 foot speed. I did give them the explosive core, though. They do blow up when they're died. So, yeah, what do we think about that? Just kind of adding a little minor sort of trap here that's kind of hidden, and it doesn't deal any damage. And it's one of those things where so it's interesting, if I see this kind of trap that's nowhere near combat, then I will complain about it. Even though it's kind of interesting flavor-wise, I'm like, okay, that's interesting, but being restrained for a round or for a minute or something doesn't mechanically matter in the end. Like, it's there for flavor, fine, but if it just cures itself after a minute and there's no other danger, then it effectively nothing happens, like, resource-wise, if that makes sense. But suddenly you have this in an area where there is a combat encounter, and now it's a big friggin' deal. Walking into a room and suddenly possibly becoming restrained and then not being able to, like, close in on melee or whatever you're going to do is pretty nasty. So if we do that, we have to decide on what the DC is, which I don't know what would be a good one. At level 5, I guess we could look up what the trap rules are. And it's very possible that the first or second, players that enter in will make the save. And then I can choose as DM how, like, obvious I want to be that this was a trap happening. Or not even a trap, but like an effect of the statue entering this room. The trap should be used sparingly, lest they lose their charm. That's the first sentence they put under traps. Trap should be used sparingly. I mean, yeah. I get what you're saying, but also I feel like in general, none of us use traps enough. Unless you are using a literal death trap dungeon, like a Tomb of Horror style dungeon where you have more traps than combat, I feel like everybody could use some more trap things. The best traps are fleeting distractions that skilled characters can overcome in a short amount of time, or deadly puzzles that require quick thinking and teamwork to overcome. Traps that are undetectable and inescapable are rarely fun. Fair enough. Example traps. Okay, so what's like a fire casting statue? Or should I just click? Oh, there it is. A creature moves in the trap's pressure plate for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there. A nearby statue exhales a 15-foot cone of magical flame. The statue can look like anything. So yeah, DC 15 deck save. Taking 2d10 fire damage and a failed save. Yeah, that's probably... Actually, this suggests... Oh, and if your level's 5 through 10, like 4d10 damage. Let's see if it says DC. Okay. Yeah, so for... Oh, let's see. There's deadly and nuisance traps. So a nuisance trap, which this one should... I don't think would qualify as deadly. But it is meant to affect people who come in. If you're the average commoner, then you've only got a +0. So even a DC 10 gives you a 50% chance of saving. So you could do maybe a DC 13 would make it a nuisance trap. I hope he says DC 16 plus. Yeah, so I'm using the word trap because that's mechanically what this is, but it's not even... This isn't like a surprise. Like everybody who enters the Abbey knows about this, basically. They know that this is something that's just part of... It's like the equivalent of... I guess every church and religion has a different thing, but like... I'm trying to think of the last time I stepped inside a church. It was probably like 30 years ago, if I'm being honest. I was raised Catholic, but that did not take at all. But like I remember like walking by, like there's like a holy water thing. And I think you're supposed to like take it and put the cross on your forehead or something. So it's the equivalent of like that, or like you're walking in and you're making the sign of the cross or whatever for Christian churches. So it's just some kind of, what was the word for that? Affirmation or something, routine thing that you do when you like walk into a holy place, I guess. So that would be the equivalent here, but it's... I guess the idea is you can make a save mechanically, but everybody who enters here, the idea is you're supposed to fail the save. Because that's how you like feel more of the stone's hands on you or something like that. So that's kind of the excuse I'm using. So I'm talking myself into this. We're adding a little bit of an extra thing in here. So we'll put statue trap. Anyone who's... And I like the fact that it lines up on the map really well, where as soon as you walk through the main entrance door, the statue is right there, facing sideways, so you are automatically in its vision or whatever. So it's basically like these two squares right here, which is, I think, perfect. In fact, I'm going to put a little thing on the GM layer to remind myself that it's there. There we go. So anyone who steps inside the Abbey is affected by the Calarduran statue that faces the entryway. So it's kind of magical based, I guess. There's no real like pressure plate system or anything. Must make a DC 13 con save. So I'm not going to do it that high either, I don't think. Because I don't think it should be a dead. I think it should be just a regular nuisance kind of level thing, which I think 13 is fine. That's also the save they suggest for the religion check for identifying it, so we'll use that. 13 Constitution save, or become restrained until the start of their next turn. So then they have to be restrained for the rest of their turn, and basically the full round until the next turn. As per the Flesh to Stone spell. Although, interestingly, it says, even on a successful save, the speed is 0. So I could roll with that. Oh, there it is. There it is. Constructs automatically succeed on the save. Boom. This is perfect. God, I fucking missed that sentence. And that's why the constructs aren't affected by it. Brilliant, me. You fools. They didn't even know about this. Become restrained until the end of their next turn. So even if they succeed... I'm using a 6th level spell here. On a success, their speed becomes 0 till the start of their next turn. Dang. So that's kind of a big deal. But unlike the petrify, so it's only that first half of the flesh to stone. Hey, Demnix. Oh, and Morgan, good luck with your cats. Can take our cats to the vet. So I'm not worried about the petrify or anything like that. It's not supposed to be that. It's just supposed to be like this really brief. I don't know. I'll have to write something. A plaque beside the statue reads, feel the still touch of Deep Brother. That sounds weird. Stone's embrace. I don't know. Something interesting. To give the party some kind of clue, I guess, about what's going on here. So only if they step into here, they have to make that saving throw against being restrained. And they may think, okay, let's step back and let the creatures handle it, but they're not going to be affected by it. The Clockworks, I don't know if they would actually be clever enough to try and use that statue effect. Because they do have ways of like knocking the party out and stuff. But I don't know if they would be like other monsters would like realize that and like, oh, let's drag them into that area effect. But I don't think the Clockwork soldiers would necessarily have the wherewithal to do that. So it really is only going to affect like the first 1 or 2 people entering, and then once they realize this is happening, they're like, oh, I'm just not going to enter that space, which is fine. So then Kavoda, they'll have that big social encounter, which I mentioned. And then I'm hoping that is going to take up like more than enough time for our session, because I really haven't. So we talked about the slag line. We talked about Old Lockford. We talked about Halfway Isle. We even talked about Cave Mouth more in general, in case they go down there. I'm not particularly prepared for if they make it all the way into Turbine Heights. So we'll have to probably stop before they get there. And then I might need to prepare a little bit for the Overlook in case they do have one person who can like fly across or something and check it out. And the one thing I'm disappointed with here is that there's really cool map art that looks like this, which looks like the town. But the map art feels incorrect on how this central island works, because the central Overlook place looks like a giant clock tower, dungeon tower thing that takes up the entire area. And that's not at all what the description or the battle map is. And what it showcases instead, and I think that's true of Mayor Broadway's map, sort of, is that it's kind of a big cavernous area. Let's see, where's the locations? This is L12, the Overlook. An enormous hollowed out stalactite with luminous clock faces built into it. Okay. Oh, I see. It is coming from the ceiling rather than the floor. Okay. It still looks more like industrialized. I was picturing more caves. The Overlook's clocks are mechanical wonders limited by magic. They keep perfect time. A hollowed-out central chamber in the Overlook contains the Lockford Security Center. The facility is surrounded by rough-hewn chambers containing magnificent fungi gardens and open windows overlooking the town. Come here to wander the gardens, pick mushrooms, and enjoy the views. Characters can use the control console to raise and lower the bridges. And then the center, it just feels like there's more going on here. It feels like if you look at it, I don't know, this feels like a dungeon, right? Like a tower, and it's not. It's like a single room. So I think, I don't know. The map is, this is a cool art, but I feel like it gives false hopes about what this center area is. No, I knew about tights and mites. I just didn't realize this was a tight. I thought they were all stalagmites rising from the ground. I did not realize this central area, which now that I look at it makes total sense because it ends in a little point at the end, is actually coming from the top versus the bottom. It makes sense also why it's higher than the others now that I look at it. So I should include that in the description. But in any case, I don't know. It's a little bit different because it only has like one building, and the building itself is only one room, I believe. It's a domed building. Perched atop the rocky mound is a squat stone building topped with a crystal dome. The cavern is home to a bunch of giant lizards, which are docile but skittish. The giant ones are trained to serve the Sverfneblin as pack animals. You can use animal handling to talk to them, I guess. They're just not hostile. Which we do have a druid, so maybe they can have fun with the lizards. And yeah, the security center is super tiny. It's just, where is it? This. So yeah, it's a single domed building with basically just a map of Little Lockford as a hologram, like battle table map thing, and then the controls, which are the exact same as in the power station. So a little disappointing there, and getting to it is there's not really any extra security. So I don't know. I'm gonna have to change things out, I think. I don't. Feels a little easy. I wish, I don't know, I wish there was like a miniature like cave tower dungeon here instead of just kind of waltzing right in and just having it be this hollowed out area with a dome, but I guess that is what it is. It's very weird that there's no other Clockworks here. You'd think this place would be swarming with Clockworks instead of swarming with just giant lizards. And you just kind of walk up to the security area, which is also like not even locked. So there's a lot of just weird things here that I'm probably going to need to change up a bit. Like it should be swarming with Clockwork soldiers. I mean, this is the damn security center. And I get that the factory and everything is actually, or her workshop, like that's where maybe most of the Clockworks are actually coming from and all that. But the security center is still like where everything is activated and whatnot. So I still think that's a pretty damn important location for the party to deal with, and is clearly where they fight Tixie Tockworth, at least the first time. She does have some really great spells. She's got Dimension Door to escape. Like, we could even do a multi-boss fight here where she's able to escape and the party has to battle her somewhere else, but the reward will still be taking the security center once they're here. They could try to get the key also from her. That would be an interesting part of the battle, is maybe you don't have to defeat her, but we can just grab the key from her and then go to the workshop. Then, of course, that's where she'll be for a second stage boss fight, if I can pull that off. So, yeah, that's something I'll probably look at, is trying to look twice at the Overlook and make sure I've got at least some information in case they come over here and want to scout it out. But definitely put up some more like security roadblocks in general so that one person can't just kind of waltz right into everything. But I think we've got Old Lockford completely planned out. We've got Halfway Isle planned out. We've got at least one encounter getting to Cave Mouth planned out. And I think that's going to be good enough, hopefully, for tomorrow's session. And then from there we can, based on where they go, we'll plan out some more stuff, but probably focus heavily on Turbine Heights for next week, because that's where they need to go to get the power station and do some other stuff. But I'm looking forward to finally exploring Little Lockford for tomorrow's session. But that's going to do it for this session of Crafting the Golden Vault. If you enjoy the content, as always, please check out patreon.com/Watson. Shouts to Panda patrons Joe, Will, Thomas, Brandon, Genocide, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Big Nut, John, Nathan, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Louise, Buzz, Wardy, Mill, C, Tom, the Dogs, Marcus, Hugo, John, Jealous Guy, Zim, Dante, how about Demnix, Chris, Robert, and Chris H, and gold patrons, RPG Paper Crafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Does the Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Scott, Rufus, Jerry, Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see you tomorrow for D&D.